Over the years, our kids have had a lot of illnesses. 6 kids means a lot of childhood sniffles and coughs. And when our kids weren't feeling well, it affected our entire home. Luckily, some clever guys in Brisbane have come up with the perfect solution: Rehydrate.
Rehydrate are delicious drinks that rehydrate up to 3 times faster than water alone, packed with essential electrolytes. Rehydrate is one of the few rehydration products that is safe for all ages. Stock up at Coles and be prepared whenever illness strikes.
It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Just knowing that there's a responsive adult who cares enough to listen is usually enough for a child to get over themselves and then come up with their own solution, their own way forward.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the author of 6 books about raising happy families. And I'm here with my wife, Kylie Coulson, the mum to our 6 daughters.
We love getting your reviews and feedback. Emails keep coming through to podcasts. That's podcasts with an S at happyfamilies.com.au. And we love getting your reviews at Apple Podcasts as well. They're great. They help people to find our podcast.
Too right.
So we got a 5-star.
We've actually been getting a bunch of 5-star reviews. It's been really, really exciting.
Well, they're the ones you asked for.
Well, thank you so much for sending them through.
Helen C. at Down Under says, great, practical and common sense approach to parenting with a dose of humour that helps you reflect on your own parenting and how to improve. Love the banter and the vulnerability when Justin and Kylie share their real life experiences. We should tell your mum this one. She doesn't reckon you're very funny.
No, I know. Well, my mum thinks that I'm literally, whenever I try to say anything funny, mum says, I hope that you don't say funny things like that on the podcast because people will stop listening. Don't ever, if you're in front of an audience, don't ever try to be funny. That's what she says.
So thanks, Helen. You boosted Justin's morale just a little bit.
I'm funny.
You are funny.
Hey, so check out our ceiling. I know that no one else can see our ceiling, but isn't it great?
It's great.
I mean, I'm not saying it's the best in the world, but it sure is up there.
So bad.
I'm so sorry. Look, if you're new to Happy Families, I promise that I won't tell any more of those jokes. You may not be aware of our of our Happy Families memberships. For a small monthly membership fee, we give you all sorts of parenting help each week. And as part of the membership, we do a book club each term. But even if you're not a member, we want you to at least get a sense of what it's all about. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be giving you a sneak peek at this term's book club. It's actually a book club run by Mrs. Happy Families, Kylie.
I do, and it doesn't actually matter how many times I do it. It's still a little bit scary. I think I would much prefer to have everybody come and sit in my lounge room so we can see each other face to face and instead of staring at the screen.
Yeah, but people love the book club. It really goes well.
So this month we are actually talking about your 3rd book,
9 Ways to a Resilient Child.
Why did you write it?
I had to. My publisher said you need. No, it wasn't actually because of that at all. I wrote an article for KidSpot I used to be the KidSpot parenting expert several years ago. I wrote an article about resilience. I think it was called 21 Ways to Help Your Kids Be More Resilient. And when we shared it on socials, it just exploded. Like it went absolutely bananas. Now, I've gone back and actually read the article. It wasn't the best article I've ever written by a long way, but it went nuts, absolutely viral. And then about 3 months later, we shared it again and it went even bigger. And about 3 months later, we shared it again and it went bigger yet. It was like this concept of wanting to have children who are resilient was just explosive. And so, and it was all very, very positive. People were like, oh, I need this. This is exactly the sort of thing that I need so that I can help my kids to become resilient. And after that 3rd time of this thing just going totally viral and everyone saying, oh, yeah, I need more of this, I thought, well, maybe there's a book in this. So I sat down and I researched and it was fascinating because my first book, 21 Days to a Happier Family, I kind of just wrote what I'd learned about as I did my PhD. It was really, really simple to write. I wrote it in a very short time frame because I had all this knowledge. Writing 9 Ways to a Resilient Child was like giving myself a PhD in resilience. I had to go back to all of the original materials, all of the original references. I did so much research. You will remember that I became, in fact, I had to move out of the house for a couple of weeks.
I was a single mum for quite a while.
Yeah, so that I could get the book written because I put so much pressure on myself to get the research right and to make sure that what I was sharing was spot on. And what I discovered was that there's a bunch of things that we believe about resilience that are actually untrue. And there's a bunch of things that build resilience that nobody seems to know about. And so that's kind of what the book became.
So you kind of split the book into these two sections. You've talked about a whole heap of myths. And we've decided that for book club, we're actually not going to delve into the myths because we want to utilize our time to focus on the things that actually help build resilience instead of focusing on the things that don't. And so today I thought we might just tackle a few of those myths.
Yeah, well, it's so important that we do tackle those myths because if we're doing the wrong stuff, it can actually undermine our children's resilience. And there are some really damaging ideas that are very, very common that we want to help parents to make sure that they don't fall into this trap.
I know how much you love it when I quote you.
Are you going to quote me?
And I did. I found this little, and it's just a one-liner, but it really, really stood out to me as I was reading. It says, responsive parenting always has been and remains the rock on which resilience rests.
Oh, almost brings tears to my eyes
Can I
hearing
say that
you
again?
quote me. Yeah.
Responsive parenting always has been and remains the rock on which resilience rests. And I love that because I think that so often, so many of the, I'm going to say gems of advice that people choose to throw at us actually are anything but responsive.
Yeah, it's really interesting because sometimes, let's say you've got a child who's having a hard time. The idea is toughen up, princess. Get over it. If your child wants some attention, well, don't give them attention. Let them learn that they can't have attention whenever they want. There's that kind of idea, whether they're toddlers or teenagers. My response to that is that's not what the research says. This idea that you can make your children suffer, you can put your children through hard times, you can be the person that makes them struggle and that's going to make them stronger. It's just not borne out by the research.
That reminds me of a quote by L.R. Knost that you quote in the book, and it just resonates so beautifully. She says, "It's not our job to toughen our children up to face a cruel and heartless world. It's our job to raise children who will make," I'm going to cry because I think this is beautiful. "It's our job to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless." And I think as a parent, if I can do that, then I've done something right.
What I love about that quote, and how could it not be in a book like this, it's just so beautiful, is that there's this idea that we want our kids to make the world a better place, but it's a tough dog-eat-dog world out there, and therefore they've got to be tough too. And so it's our job to prepare them for it by toughening them up. I love the way she says this. And what she's really saying is responsive parenting always has been and always will be the rock upon which resilience rests. As parents, the research shows that when our children are having a struggle, when our children are having a challenge, most of the time, if they're having a challenge, they're going to behave challenging because form follows feelings. Their behavior follows the emotion that they're carrying. You know what it's like. If you feel lousy, you tend to act lousy. And there's still too many people who believe that if the kids are having a rough time, well, they're just going to have to figure it out themselves. It's this drink some concrete and harden up kind of idea. And it's damaging to kids because in that moment, children need to know that they have somebody who believes in them, that they matter, that their feelings matter. And every now and again, I'll meet a parent, sometimes a mum, sometimes a dad, who'll say, "Oh, don't give me all that feeling stuff. Just tell them to do the right thing. Tell them to get over it. Tell them to figure it out." But what's really interesting is, when your emotions are really big, when you've got really big feelings, it's kind of hard to figure anything out, because your mind doesn't work so clearly. And what happens is parents say to their kids, you need to toughen up or stop it, cut it out. I've had enough. If you do that one more time, so help me, here's what I'm going to do to you. And they threaten their kids. And that does often help us to achieve a certain level of compliance. The kids actually start to go along with what they've been told to do, to stop it, to cut it out. But emotions don't vanish by being banished. That emotional pain and trauma that the child's feeling, instead of being able to talk about it and work things out with their parent, they internalize it. It goes inside. And eventually, inside becomes this explosive element that's just waiting for one more trigger and then kaboom. And sometimes we see it with depression. Sometimes we see it with anxiety. If we're talking about little kids, it might just be that they throw their Matchbox car at their little brother's head. They slam a door. It might be that the 10-year-old gives you attitude and stomps out of the room. Emotions don't vanish by being banished. We don't have to sit down and do this big emotional conversation every time there's an emotion. But when there's stuff going on, our kids need parents who are responsive. And that, we don't even have to solve the problem, but just knowing that there's a responsive adult who cares enough to listen is usually enough for a child to get over themselves and then come up with their own solution, their own way forward. That's what builds resilience.
I love it. I think that we actually have another myth that we might talk about after the break.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Are Screens Creating Tension at Home? Tweens, Teens and Screens is a webinar to guide families to healthy, safe super screen solutions. Buy it today at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And we're talking about Justin's book, 9 Ways to a Resilient Child, because it's our Happy Families membership book club read this month.
That was a mouthful, wasn't it? Happy Families membership. So if you're not a Happy Families member, you can get all the info, by the way, at happyfamilies.com.au. Book club's tomorrow night. Kylie's running it. And actually, just before we go on, I'm going to mention that we're giving a big discount on the book and workbook together, which we've never done before. It's only available at happyfamilies.com.au. So people who want to get the book and the workbook cheap, I'll give you the details of how you can do that at the end of the podcast.
A lot of people think that competition builds resilience. In your book, you suggest otherwise.
Yeah, this is really interesting because a lot of parents will be like, well, I've got to get my kids into competitive sports so they can learn to lose well, or so that they can learn how to win and come out on top. And competition is meant to be this character building thing. Now, I'm not going to argue completely that competition doesn't build character. The idea that losing and playing in competitive sports is important for resilience is a furphy. There's just no good research for it. Now, here's the other really provocative idea. Winning isn't good for resilience either.
Tell me more about that.
So when I was doing the research, this kind of stood out to me in a whole new way. What I found was that whether it's on the sporting field or whether it's in the classroom or whether it's in a corporate environment, what happens when people win is many of them, not all, of course, this is on average, but many people start to feel like being a winner is part of their identity, and then they have to hold on to that. And when your identity is that you always win, it starts to become shaky if that identity is threatened. And then what the researchers who've been looking into this have found is that if winning matters to you and it's part of your identity, your resilience becomes shaky because if it looks like you're not going to pass the test, you're more likely to cheat to maintain your identity as a winner. If you're not going to win the game, you're more likely to cheat because you need to maintain your identity as a winner, or you're going to blame the referee, or you're going to blame the weather conditions or whatever because it's part of your identity. If you're a corporate executive and your quarterly report's looking dodgy or your annual statement's looking rotten, you're going to cheat. And there are so many examples that we can pull from any aspect of life where winners actually become less resilient because they're so caught up on being winners. Now, is this the case for everyone? No, of course it's not. But in terms of saying that competition and competitiveness is good for our kids, generally it's not, except with two exceptions. Number one, when the competition is all about having fun and building competence. So developing mastery. Like, I don't like playing ping pong unless I'm competing. Boring to sit there and hit the ball across the table unless we're scoring. But I'm also developing my competence. And number two, relatedness, this sense that my relationships are getting stronger. If I want to destroy the people who are on the opposition team, it's bad for my resilience and it's bad for my well-being. But if I'm having a friendly bike race or a friendly game of whatever with somebody that I really enjoy their company and our relationship's being built and I'm developing increased competence, that's when a little bit of competition can be fun.
I've really loved having this conversation today, and I've actually learnt a whole heap as we've talked about these two ideas, these two myths, this whole, toughen up princess, and the idea that competition will actually, enhance our children's resilience, and yet it really doesn't. There's nothing to support that.
Well, that's why I wrote the book, and I'm excited for you to finish the book so we can talk about some more of this.
Well, you'll have to wait till next week.
Got to wait till book club.
So the take-home message for today, I have to share that quote again because it really just resonates so beautifully with me. Responsive parenting always has been and remains the rock on which resilience rests.
I'm pretty stoked that I wrote that. Well, book club for our Happy Families members tomorrow night. If you're not a member, you can sign up now at happyfamilies.com.au. Just click on the members tab and you'll get all the info there. You get to participate in book club. You get a webinar each month. Premium members also get to participate in a Q&A every month and a whole lot more as well. And even if you're not a member, but you'd like to grab a copy of 9 Ways to a Resilient Child, go to happyfamilies.com.au and click on the 9 Ways workbook and book package, and we'll give you the workbook for nothing. So that's a $20 discount. Big discount. We'll link to it in the show notes to make it easier for you, or you can just go to happyfamilies.com.au. As always, we really hope that you've enjoyed the podcast. If you do enjoy the podcast, please, we enjoy your 5-star ratings and reviews. Leave your review wherever you get your podcasts. Simple to do, helps others to make their families happier. And thank you, as always, to Craig Bruce, our executive producer, and Justin Rulon from Bridge Media, our producer. We're really grateful to both of you guys. And if you'd like more information about making your family happier, especially the membership where book club happens each month, it's kind of like Netflix for your family, but actually valuable. Is that a word? Valuable, I can't even say it now. Valuable. Get all the info at happyfamilies.com.au.